My name is Jamie Winship. My wife and I, Donna Winship, moved to Seattle in 2016, and we started an organization, a company. It's actually, we call it an experiment called the Identity Exchange. And the goal of the Identity Exchange is to teach people to live fearlessly in their true identity. So that whole phrase is important. To live means every day fearlessly, without fear, in the truth of who you really are. So that's what we do. We've spent many years overseas in the Muslim world, 27 years in the Muslim world, working in conflict zones. And in those conflict zones, we figured out that the main issue for conflict or separation between people was separation from your own true self. And once people were reconciled to themselves, to discover who they actually were, then that true identity could work out into reconciliation with other people. So that's what we do. It's what we spend our time on. So in Seattle, like in the rest of the world, we're in a time of a lot of chaos, a lot of transition. We're watching structures break down. We're watching things happen that we've never expected. And it's in these kinds of times that we move into this sort of liminal space. We can't go backward. The events have already happened. The chaotic events have occurred, and we don't know what's forward. So we're in this liminal space, sort of like between the death of Jesus and the resurrection, where no one really knew what was going on, and it produced all kinds of fear. And when you think about it, the disciples, who were the only ones that sort of knew what was going on, their strategy was to lock themselves in a room away from the world. And that's what fear can do, and that's what a false sense of self can do, or a false sense of God even. So Jesus, when he was walking on the earth, he talked about a new reality. And so he came into this world, into the kingdom really of man, of Caesar, and he started talking about a new kingdom, another kingdom that would begin now, here, on earth, just like we were in heaven. And when he started to talk about that kingdom, he gave one major teaching on it, among others, but there was one significant one, which we call the Sermon on the Mount. And in the Sermon on the Mount, he actually describes each of our own lives in the kingdom of God now. And he covers this amazing range of topics like anger and justice and giving and materialism, and what to do with your neighbor, and how to love your enemies. And he concludes, this is Matthew 5-7, he concludes with the story of a person actually building a house, building a kingdom, building a house. And what's the foundation? If the foundation is sand, or things that don't last or have no real permanence, money and all these sorts of things, power and control, then when the storms come, the house will collapse. But if you build the house on the rock, on the truth of Christ and a redeemed world, then no matter what storms come, the house will stand. So to introduce that entire teaching, which it says the people were astounded by, they were dumbfounded by the teaching of the Sermon on the Mount. And they said, this is truly a person who speaks with authority, but not like the scribes, not like the teaching we've heard in the past. So it's authoritative, but it's different. So for us, in this chaotic time, as leaders and pastors and people in the community, and in this chaotic time, how do we help establish the kingdom of God? Especially when the way things we understand are starting to fall apart and break apart, and we're dealing with racial issues and environmental issues and economic issues and political issues. They all seem to be crumbling, and no one seems to know what to do. But we do know what to do. And Jesus begins the Sermon on the Mount with an amazing series of sayings called the beatitudes. And the interesting thing about the beatitudes is that if you read the beatitudes as Jesus spoke them, as a rabbi, as an Eastern teacher, rather than as a Greek or someone who just breaks things down into segments and goes in a linear fashion, then you'll notice that Jesus is actually speaking in a progression. He's actually saying, in order to establish a kingdom on earth like I'm about to describe, there's a process you need to enter into. And you need to enter into this process every day, really all the time. And as Paul says, by doing this, you're not conforming any longer to the patterns of the world, but you're being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And you do this by presenting yourself unto God every day. And so Jesus starts this amazing process, the explanation of it. He walks up on the hill, and the people are seated, and it says that Jesus sat down, which was a very kingly thing to do. And it says he took a breath, because kings breathe out their life on their people. He took a breath, and then he spoke, and he started this intro into this whole new kingdom, this creative process, with the words, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." What an interesting place to start. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the self-emptying ones, the ones who have emptied themselves out of their own kingdom, their own fear, their own guilt, their own goals. And so the beginning of the creative process in the kingdom of God is what Jesus did in Philippians when he left heaven. He emptied himself and incarnated himself among people. He didn't try and grasp things for himself, but he's the God who self-emptied. So if we're going to begin a creative process, what we need to do the very first thing we have to do is self-empty. And this means that we get with the Lord, alone with the Lord, fill with the Spirit of Christ, and we ask God this question: Lord, is there anything in me that's preventing me from receiving all that you have for me? New ideas, new ways to parent, new ways to run education, new ways to police. What in me is preventing me from receiving from you? Because the key to entry into the kingdom of God is receiving. That's the key to receive everything that God has for you and me. And so we can't do that if we're filled up with our own kingdom. And so it's a very deep and beautiful process. God, is there anything in me that's preventing me from receiving all that you want to do in and through me in the world? Because we're not going to be creative without the creative Spirit in charge in our life, ruling in our life. And so then ideas come up like, my fear of money, my concern about power, these issues of self-protection and self-promotion, which are so quick to be learned by us. I got to protect myself. I have to protect my family. And it closes us off from receiving. So the very first step is self-emptying. Blessed are the poor in spirit, Jesus says, because those are the ones who will receive the kingdom of God. That's where it will be found, is in the receiving, not in the doing. Once you've opened yourself up, once you've removed in this beautiful exchange, and a lot of that's the false identity, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, these prevent you from receiving from God. And asking God, what is it that you have for me to know? And the very first thing God will always do with us is tell us who we really are. You are loved, you are enough, I'm already proud of you. I'm not disappointed in you. Do not be afraid to receive from me. As if it's going to hurt you or God's mad at you or something like that. So you're opening up like that. And then when you're empty and you're asking God, what do you call me? What do you want me to know about these things? Then Jesus progresses and he says this next: Blessed are those who mourn. Why? Because God will comfort you in that mourning. So the next question is, you're empty of yourself, is, God, what did you make me to mourn for in this world? What do you want me to be sad about? Because if I'm sad about what you made me to be sad about, you will comfort me there. If I'm mourning about things that aren't for me, that aren't intended for me, how can God comfort me in the false? If I'm worried about money, I'm mourning for my future because, I don't know if I'm secure. God can't comfort you in that falsehood. But in my empty self, in my true self, just me and God in my true self, then I become sad for what God made me to be sad for. And that very beautiful sadness is a God emotion. And God says, Jamie, I want you to be sad about conflict in the world. And I will meet you in the pursuit of ending that conflict, and I will comfort you there. Be empty of yourself and be sad for what I made you to be sad about, and we will meet together there. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted in that sadness. What does God want you to be sad about? Not a million things, one thing. What's the thing? What is that thing? Then in that place of mourning, longing for that thing, then Jesus says, blessed are the meek. Blessed are the ones who aim all of their passions in the one direction towards that one thing that you are here to interact with, to change, to bring transformation. And you're sad if it doesn't happen. Then you bring all your passions in line. I'm not trying to pursue this and this and this, and I'm sad about everything. It's one thing. And you domesticate those passions and you line them up like a stallion in a corral. And it knows which direction to go. Blessed are the meek. If I channel all those passions, all my creative energies in one direction, then what happens? Then Jesus says, you shall inherit the earth. Like that thing here, now on this planet that you long for and mourn for and pursue after, justice or whatever it is, if all of your passion is aimed at it, you will have it. You can inherit it. Take it. It's yours. Receive it. Moving in that direction. And as you begin to move in that direction, empty of yourself, sad, passionate about this, passions directed, Jesus says, hunger and thirst for that every day. Hunger and thirst for it every day. Never be satisfied. Never talk about, yeah, we did it yesterday. Hunger and thirst for it every day. Because as you're hungering and thirsting for it every day, like manna in the desert, I will fill you every day. But not for tomorrow, for today. So it keeps that energy moving. It keeps it going. And then he says, in that pursuit, in that hunger, be meek. Be merciful. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Don't run over people in that hunger and passion. Don't ignore people. Forgive people, because you're going to run into conflict. You're going to run into challenges. Always do it with mercy in order that you can receive mercy. This keeps the flow moving. It's a kind of forgiveness. And in that merciful state, you become pure of heart, single-minded on the thing you're pursuing. And in it, Jesus said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will always see God. So you'll never lack understanding or wisdom on what to do next. You'll see God leading you into the ways of doing it, always, if these other things are in line. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And as you're pursuing that, seeing God, you will always be a peacemaker. You will bring peace to everything around you. There won't be conflict. It'll be peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the children of God. And in that whole role, with all those things lined up, receiving, empty, mourning, merciful, pure in heart, seeing God, you're above persecution. Nothing can stop you. Blessed are the persecuted, the highest level. Blessed are the persecuted, for theirs is the kingdom. And it's like a circle. And every day we jump into this process, beginning with the very first question, Lord, what in me is preventing me from hearing from you? That's the beginning point. That's what happens. That's experientially what happens in a relationship with Jesus in my vocation when I'm walking through the beatitudes like Jesus taught them. Anger, all of those things become change, and I become salt and light in the world. So as a pastor or anyone in any vocation, every day, God, what in me is preventing me from receiving from you, from doing things in a completely different and new way? What would stop me? Empty yourself of this and receive from God and go the new way. Be transformed and transform those around you.